Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Moonscapes. This will be Moonscapes number 26. The date is May the 5th, 2014. Unfortunately, as you can see, we have some cloud problems tonight, but I figured I'd better go ahead because I just don't know what I'm going to be getting down the line. It's been an awful long winter. As you know, we had terrible weather. I have not gotten a live video of the moon up in a long time. So I figured I better try to shoot through some of these holes that we are getting. I've got a fairly nice image here in front of us. Got some nice zoom. I'm using an 18 millimeter. I want to talk about these eyepieces a little bit later. I'm using a Meade series of eyepieces, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those, as long as I don't have any problems and I lose the video as we go along. I don't want to get into an awful lot of deep stuff. As kind of just want to get back into the groove. Playing around with some of these settings. We got a nice contrasty view there. Let me see if I cut down some of this contrast, what happens here. It gives us a little more realistic view. Those clouds are just giving us an awful lot of problems. As you can see, I'm using a low power eyepiece tonight, and there is a reason for that, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. As you can see, we've got plenty of zoom with it. Those three craters up near 11 o'clock are Theophilus, Katharina, and Theophilus, Katharina, and I'll be darned, I forgot the other one. It's in my head there somewhere, but it's been a long winter, and let me see. I can look at it real quick up. I have a paper map here. I didn't bring my other maps out. Let me see, that one there is, let's see, 279. I got to go by numbers. I can hardly read it here. It's kind of small. Yeah, 279, yeah, so Theophilus, that's the one with the big central peak. And then over from that, in the center is... I believe that's Katharina. Let me double check that. The one right next to it. No, that's Cyrillus. I'm sorry. And then the other one is, I believe, Katharina, which is that the third one, which is part of the chain there. And got to look at this map again, and it's like a 50. Yeah, Katharina. Anyway, a nice area of the moon. Way over on the right side, of course, we have Mare Crisium, and with the crater Proculus, with that white fantail expansion up there. What I wanted to do actually tonight is talk a little bit about the craters of the moon. As I said, we don't want to get into anything too heavy tonight. I want to start off with something very simple. I want to get into something that they had gotten into real deep from about the mid-1800s. I'm going to do a little bit of zooming around here as I'm talking. Look at some of this detail too. Some of these clouds are varying. They're a little thicker in areas and thinner in others, so the quality is going to come in and out on us. There was a huge debate in the 1800s as to whether the craters on the moon were volcanic or were they some type of impact event. And for the most part, they were leaning towards the fact that they were volcanic. There's a very good book written in 1885 by James Nesmith and I believe James Carpenter on the moon. And they go in great detail showing how volcanic activity can cause the craters on the moon. impacts, they didn't like the impact idea. It just seemed to them that the impact idea just wasn't the right way to go in their mind. And so for the longest time, there was a big debate about it. It went all the way up into the 1960s during the Apollo era, and there was still, let's turn up the brightness here a little bit, we can get some detail out on the plane there. That is, let me see, it's been, I believe that's Mayor let me see, I want to make sure I got that right, that that is Mayor Serenitatis, yeah, and then you probably got Mayor Tranquility is up on top, probably. No, you know, I might have this flipped because this map is giving me a reverse view. Let me see, Mayor Christmas is down there. Yeah, so that's Mayor Tranquilitatis, right straight, or almost kind of to the left. And then Mayor Serenitatis is up to the right. And there you can see the dividing line. And let's up that color and see if that color intensity brings any of that out. Kind of hard to see it tonight. We're before first quarter, so we're in an area where not a lot of color shows up. But anyway, to get back to that debate about the craters, volcanic as opposed to impact, that raged on. It raged on right up until the 1960s. And we had to develop a way to really understand the lunar surface if we were going to land on there with the Apollo program. So they devised two programs. One was the Rangers, which were a series of probes that went in and took photographs right up until the vehicle crashed into the moon, and then, of course, destroyed the vehicle as it was taking its last close-up pictures. And then they went to the Surveyor series, which were actually soft-landed on the moon. And that did finally put the nail in the coffin of the fact that they were volcanic. And how did they do that? It was very interesting. It was the Ranger series, actually, that showed that they were not volcanic. The Ranger series, and I grew up during this period, and I remember I was hanging on every word, and of course we didn't have 24-hour news cycles back then. And I used to listen on the radio hour by hour and follow the spacecraft all the way out to the moon. Well, the Ranger series had a real rough time. There were, I believe, a total of 9 Ranger shots to the moon to take close-up pictures. Rangers 1 through 6 failed. Rangers 1 and 2 failed to even get out of Earth orbit. Rangers 3, 4, 5, and 6 got away from the Earth with varying degrees of success. 1 missed the moon by 30,000 miles, and of course we weren't going to get any close-up pictures there. And 1 seemed to be right on course. I believe it was Ranger 5. And we were right on the edge of our seat, waiting for the television cameras to come on. The moment for the cameras to come on and start recording images of the moon, and nothing happened. There was a short circuit which occurred during launch, which destroyed the television circuitry, and that failed. And it was really starting to get frustrating. And finally, Ranger 7 came along. Everything worked properly. The Atlas Agena booster worked perfectly, put the craft on the perfect trajectory for the moon. It reached the altitude that the cameras were to turn on. The cameras turned on. They first started taking pictures and probably got images similar to what we're looking at right here. And then it would start getting in closer and closer, and as it got in closer, the details started getting better and better. Now, we still couldn't tell too much from that yet, and as it got in closer and closer, and we're not going to get in anywhere near what the Rangers did with the eyepiece I have in here now. And as the craft started approaching the moon, tremendous amount of detail begin to pop out. And they noticed that the crater pits were getting smaller and smaller. Well, when the final image came in from Ranger, we only received half the image because during transmission, the craft crashed into the moon, and of course that stopped the last transmission, so we only got the last half of the picture. But the last, I don't know how many pictures there were, the last bunch of series, probably the last 50 or so, was starting to show crater pits that were 1 foot across, and then we were getting down to inches across, when in the last few images that come in, we're showing little tiny crater pits that were just several inches across. Now tell me, when's the last time you saw a volcano that was a few inches across? They don't occur in nature. What those little tiny little pits were the bombardment, the impact sites of little tiny meteorites, so tiny that we don't see them take place on the moon, but yet they leave little tiny impacts, marks on the moon. And that was the deciding feature. The craters were definitely impact features. And it was really something to see in the day. I mean, as I see, it looks like the sky has cleared up a little better. I'm sitting in my car again, as I usually do out here. Kind of gives me my own feel in the observatory. I'm kind of getting a good view of the moon here. I'm not sure what the color is going to do. Are we going to get any color here on that Meritor Inculatatus? It's going to be tough pulling, like I say, pulling color out tonight because we're in the quarter phase. But that was the deal with the craters, and it took up until the Ranger series, and of course when the Surveyor series landed, they landed on hard surfaces and got real good close-ups, and they totally confirmed the fact that the impacts were definitely, or the craters were definitely caused by impact. There are some volcanic craters on the moon. There is some volcanic craters. There were quite a bit of volcanic activity on the moon. But for the most part, the craters we see are impact features. Notice, let me see if I can center them up. The three with Theophilus, Katharina, and my other one there, which I keep on forgetting the name of, and we'll forget about that for right now. But we'll center up, and I'll zoom in on it a little bit, as high as I can go, because I'm only using an 18mm eyepiece, which I'll explain in a minute. But notice the largest crater to the right. That's Theophilus, and notice the mountain range in the center. And we talked about that in the past, how those mountains form. They're caused by a rebound effect when an asteroid strikes the moon. It's like a rock hitting the water, where you get that secondary splash that comes straight up out of the water after the impact is made. As the water kind of fills back in the empty that's just made by the impact, when it strikes together in the center, it causes it to splash back straight up in the air. And it's the same feature you're seeing here with the Theophilus and that central peak. Now, eyepieces. Last year when I started this series, I was using a series of eyepieces by Orion. They were about $150 a pop. Great eyepieces, and I had a fair amount of luck with them. And moving along here, and see what I still see we have some clouds. Those eyepieces worked well, but if you remember our old friend Bill Bryson down in Texas, he started using this series of eyepieces called Astrotechs. And then he went on to a real high-grade eyepiece, 19mm panoptic. But that's out of my range. We're talking, there's a nice view there. If I can cut down some of this graininess that's in there. Let's see if I can do that. Maybe if I cut a little of the brightness, that might help. Yeah, there we go. There's some of that. Yeah, that's a nice view there. That's the northern part of the moon. But anyway, these Atlas, or not Atlas, the Orion eyepieces were $150 a pop, and they worked well. They gave me some troubles here and there, and they worked well. But I tried a Mead eyepiece. They're called, let me see, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it here. They are Mead ED 60-degree eyepieces. And they're the same family of those Astrotechs that